Oh boy, this guy is the king of dealing damage, and as you were able to see on the thumbnail, the damage potential capabilities that you are going to have with this guy is going to be tremendously high. It's going to be insane, and you're also going to be dealing quite a lot of critical hits, which is going to yield you to be able to deal attacks for like 200 and what have you, depending on whether you are doing the combo with your smites and things like that. So yeah, this guy is very freaking nasty. On top of that, he's virtually unkillable because of the high armor class. You're able to reach like 40 armor class with this guy, which is insane. Basically, for someone to deal damage to you against this guy, they have to land a critical hit. But then again, you might be using helmets that are going to be preventing that. So yeah, there's that. So let's begin with our class right here. We're going to begin with the Paladin. We're going to take 2 levels into a Paladin, and the ability scores, these are the guys that are going to allow us to be able to have so much damage and also so much armor class. The reason for that being is that because we're going to be using finesse weapons with this guy, as you can see right here. Our weapon that we have right here is a finesse weapon. That is a short sword. That is basically what you are going to be using throughout the rest of the game. You can be using rapiers, you can be using scimitars, you can be using short swords and daggers and what have you. For this particular build, we are going to be dual wielding, but you can also use sword and board to mix and match things. That we'll talk about that a little bit later, but the thing is that you're going to be using dexterity, you're going to be dumping strength right there, and we don't really care about the saving throws that much because at the end of the day the enemy is not going to be able to hit us. So to make us go through a strength saving throw, they first have to hit us. So that is something that is not likely going to happen. That said, this is a stat allocation. We're going to have dexterity, we're going to have constitution, we're going to have intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, 16, 14, 10, and 16. And then we're going to take one more level into a Paladin. What we want from this guy is just get access to the smites and the fighting style. Now here is where you're going to have to make the decision of either going to protection or defense. Protection, if you're going to be using shields, and defense is a little bit more versatile on things that you're going to be able to have. This guy is just going to give you a +1 armor class, so we're just going to be stacking that armor class more and more. Now this is where you're going to have to make another concession. There is one more multi-class that you're going to want to take before actually going the Bard right here. And that is going to be Sorcerer. Now Sorcerer is going to give you a little bit more survivability on the early stages of the game. On the early stages of the game, you're going to want to be stacking as much armor class as possible before you actually get access to the higher level spells that you are going to have, to your access to the many things that the Bard is going to give you to be able to be CCing the battlefields. But at the end of the day, the thing is that if you take 1 level into Sorcerer right here, this is going to give you access to Shield. And Shield is just basically +5 to armor class. You have to consider it if you want to keep stacking this bad boy up. The thing is that you have as much armor class as you want, so we don't really need it. Although we are not going to be using shields, a physical shield with this character, because this guy I'm going to be building it towards dual wielding, so might as well take this. The only thing that this is going to change is that at level 12 as a Bard, if you not take this class into a Sorcerer, it's going to yield you access to a magic versatility, which is going to give you access to a whole bunch of endgame spells. And that is nice, but ideally I do not use like those endgame spells. We already have the CC potential, we already have the whole person, we already have the frightening, we already have the chance to manipulate demons, and we have a whole bunch of choices with the Bard as it is. So I'd say that it is far more valuable to have the extra +5 armor class that this is going to give you on the early stages of the game, where it's a little bit more difficult to level up. So that is what we're going to be doing right here. And now we're going to be multi-classing into a Bard. Now the cantrips, they are irrelevant. As for the spells, you are going to be taking things that are going to give you access to CC potential. like for example the animal friendship for animal enemies that you have around the fairy fire that requires concentration. We're going to be using quite a lot of concentration with this character right here, so that is something that you're going to need to have in mind. There's going to be a whole bunch of concentration spells that we're going to have right here. We have Charm Person, we have Fairy Fire, we have Dissonant Whispers. I'll guide you through my favorite spells as we level up, but right now this is what we're going to have. Now you're going to be able to change your abilities more often than not. Most of the cases we're going to have our socials maxed out, but also this guy is going to have proficiency, as you can see right here on the slide of hands, because of your high dexterity. So if you want for this character to be opening locks, that is something that you can do as well. So that is something amazing about this character. Basically, Vards are just jack of all trades. This guy is going to be able to be the face of the party, he's going to be able to open locks, and he's going to be able to just be that fantastic Vard that everyone should be having on their crew. At this point, just keep leveling your Vard, and at level 3, you're going to have access to the subclass. And again, the subclass that we are going to be choosing right here, it's going to be the College of Swords, which is going to give you a fighting style. Then again, little concession, you can either go dueling right here for you to be able to use quite a whole lot of weapons that are going to be dealing quite a lot of damage, like the devotee's mace and things like that. And this is also going to give you the choice to have a shield on your offhand, which is likely going to give you a +3 to +2 armor class, although we're going to be using 2 weapon fighting with this guy, because this is going to give you add your ability modifier and the attack that you're going to be using with your offhand weapon. And you can be using offhand weapons of dexterity. Then again, we're not going to be taking the feat on itself of the 2 weapon fighting, because we're going to be using light weapons, meaning scimitars, short swords, daggers, things like that, things that scale our melee damage with dexterity. So this is what we're going to be having, and since we're going to have access also to our defensive flourish, we are going to have a +4 to armor class. If you pair this up with the Sorcerer that we previously took, that is a +9 to the armor class, on top of the high dexterity that a medium armor class is going to give you. So you don't need a shield. Having a shield is just not necessary, so the ideal thing to go right here is going to be 2 weapon fighting. But the thing is that is something that you can have up to your personal preference. You can have it if you want to. Now the spells that you are going to take right here is going to be Whole Person, because this is one of my favorite spells. This is just free critical hits on people. So take that, you can upcast that thing to deal more critical hits on more people. Level 5, the spell is irrelevant. Take whichever spell that you would like to take, but here, ability improvement for dexterity. This, the way that we have set up this character, attack roll, damage roll, armor class, initiative, everything about that, it's delicious. I want it. My recommendation for spell at level 5, it's Fear, because it provides disadvantages on the enemy. It's a concentration spell that you're going to be able to use with your ring, so be sure to take that, but also Speak with the Dead if you want to have something like Social. That is actually quite amazing as well. Level 6, new spell, up to your personal preference, but also extra attack. At this point, it took us quite a while to get to this point. We are level 9 because we took the Sorcerer, so you can be multi-classing in respecting. It's actually quite a big deal to not receive that extra attack until level 9, which is going to leave you with without the extra attack throughout the first act of the game. But as soon as you begin the second act of the game, you're going to have the extra attack, so that is going to be gorgeous. Level 7, concentration, to make people attack different people, or dimension door for mobility purposes, so it uses action, so yeah, there's that. Level 8 though, this is where we're going to get our new feats. Then again, this is our final ability improvements to have our dexterity to 20. This is going to be a +5 to attack rolls, damage rolls, armor class, and it's also going to be a +5 to initiative, so that is going to be just delicious. And finally, level 12, I like to take my whole monster, because this gives you access to free critical hits on I like to take my level 5 spell to hold monster, because this is going to allow you to paralyze a creature as well. So not only can you paralyze humanoids right now, you can also paralyze creatures, which is just something amazing. It is a level 5 spell slot, so you're going to have to be quite careful with this guy, but you're going to have quite a lot of level 5 spell slots and also a level 6 spell slots, so that is actually going to be quite amazing. Now, one thing that I also like to take quite a lot is the Dominate Person. That is actually a spell that I like to take, and you can replace, you can change some of the low level spells that you think that you're not going to be using right here as crowd control. Maybe something that I am not going to be using is going to have this one right here, so I can replace that one to get a higher level one. You can also get the Planar Binding, this is actually something that I do want to take, because there's quite a lot of elemental phase and fiends that are actually quite annoying, so you can be binding them as well. So let's imagine for a moment that you are using concentration to sustain the Shield of Fate with your character. And you might as well be breaking that concentration, because you're going to be using Whole Person, you're going to be using Fear, you're going to be using Polymorph, you're going to be using Whole Monster, so might as well you'd not have to use that concentration, but you can also use your concentration with your Shadow Heart, your Cleric right here, to get that plus extra 2 armor class from Shield of Fate. Let's say that, for example, you're also going to be getting hastened from a potion or from a sorcerer that is going to give you a plus 4 a armor class if you sum that up. And also, let's imagine that you just use your defensive flourish right here, which is going to give you a extra 4 armor class. That is going to be a total of 34 armor class, which is filthy. If you are using the armor of agility, that doesn't limit the amount of dexterity armor class that you're going to be getting right here, so it's just 22 armor class just from the armor purely. And let's not forget that you have a plus 5 on the armor class from the shield, so yeah, you're virtually unkillable, you're a monster, you're just filthy, you're disgusting. And on top of that, let's just have in mind that we're going to have our Divine Smite on 83 damage, which is filthy, it's just disgusting. And also let's have in mind that you're always going to be dealing critical hits because of the critical hits that you have on the Mana Lucky on the 4 realms, because of the Killer Sweetheart maybe if you want to be using that, or because of the Whole Person and because of the Whole Monster, so it's just filthy. It's just filthy. So that said, let's talk about the itemization, things that you're going to be taking as you level up. Like always, there's going to be leveling options that I'm going to have in the video description. But as for the armor, on the end game you want to have the armor of agility. That is not going to limit the amount of armor class that you are going to receive from your dexterity, which is going to be 20. The Helldusk Gloves, that is going to give you a 1d6 fire damage. The Helldusk Boots, also this can be replaced by the Dark Justiciar Gauntlets as you are leveling up. And also these guys right here, they are going to give you Hellcrawler, and that is going to also allow for the enemy not to be able to knock you down, but this could also be replaced by the Long Striding Boots as you are leveling up. And as for the rings, we can be using the Killer Sweetheart right here and the Strange Conduit Ring right here to increase our 1d4 psychic damage. Remember, you're always doing concentration, so you're always going to have that 1d4 psychic damage. As for the second ring, you can be using the one that gives you a +2 to poison damage. You can be using the Killer Sweetheart. There's a whole bunch of things that you can have right here. As for the amulet, you can be using the Surgeon Subjugation amulet, but since our constitution is actually quite low, you can be using the amulet of greater health as well to increase your constitution. And when you increase your constitution, you can lower those points that you have into constitution right there to place them into strength, to have a little bit more of saving throws and strength, intelligence and wisdom. So that is actually quite nice, something that I advise for you to do as well. As for the weapons, you're going to be using the melee weapons that are going to be on short swords. It's going to be a 1 on each hand. You can also be using scimitars as you're leveling up. There's actually quite a whole bunch of scimitars that are actually quite nice. I'm going to have a whole bunch of choices that are going to be nice, and as a matter of fact, there's one amazing short sword that you can get on the first act of the game that is going to diminish the amount of critical hits that you can do on the enemy, so you can pair this up with the Dagger of the Bloodthirst that we have right here. That is going to diminish as well the amount of critical hits that you need to deal upon the enemy. So that is always nice. That is always filthy. That is always gorgeous, and that is always amazing as well. So, like I said, there's going to be a whole bunch of different leveling items for the people that believe that all of these builds, they just work on endgame items. They don't. It's based on the levels that we are taking right here, the combo that we're taking right here. But also, there's a whole bunch of options of items that you can get as you level up, and there's going to be a whole bunch of that on the items in the video description that I'm going to have right there. And finally, just to wrap up the video, basically I just explained to you everything that you are going to have. You're going to have like nearly 40 armor class, you're going to have Divine Smites of nearly 85 damage. Those can be upcasted to deal critical damage and get a second critical hit on the second smite that you're going to get from the reaction for the critical hit, so that is potentially being like 150 if you're using your resources properly. 150 damage, which is filthy. It's just amazing. And you're also going to always be able to deal critical damage on demand, at least on humanoids and beasts. And when you're not fighting beasts and you're not fighting humanoids, you can be using fear, you can be using the rest of the crowd control that you have with your Bard, you can be using defensive flourish to increase your armor class. It's just a monster. This guy is just a monster. And I love him because he's a broken little monster. And it's just damn fun to play because it also has socials, so you have lots of charisma to be able to make people think like you want for them to think. You do not need to have a, like for example, if you want to solo with this guy, this is just a person that can solo tactician no problem because of all of the tools that we previously discussed, and you're not going to have the necessity. This is just basically all in one. You do not need to have the socials because you are the socials. You do not need to have the locks and the traps because you are the locks and the traps, and it's basically everything. This guy is just the entire party in just one character. So that's amazing. If you like the content, so liking the video is super appreciated. No one told you today that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. I will be seeing you goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day and goodbye. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel before we close the door. Bye bye.